when you became the Mariners voice in 2007, I think you were just the third full-time black announcer in league history at that point.
Something like that. The numbers really. I mean, Bill White was the first, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. I saw a visit with Bill after he got the job. Two people, uh, not in a confederation, said you need to go say hello to Bill and shake his hand and thank him for what he did. And I said, done. And we went down and had a blast. I thanked him profusely. He says, get out of here. You did it yourself. Come on, get. But I said, no, seriously. And yeah, Bill White was the first. I mean, Kenny Singleton did a great job before. He was in Montreal, and then a long run in New York, and then the numbers start to really get few. And
Yeah.
there's few in terms of guys like Paul Olden did the Yankees for a while. The late Greg Gumbel did some Yankees on MSG. I mean, it's a short list, man.
And then right now, I think it's just you and Robert Ford with the Houston Astros.
Yeah, Mike Claiborne in St. Louis does the wraparound, the pre and the post, and does the significant amount of play-by-play. All those guys are all really good dudes.
So when did you decide that you wanted to do play-by-play?
Oh heck, I was probably in 8, 9 years old playing board games, and you're too young to remember the old electric football games. So you set the men up, and then you hit this button, and they vibrate, and they scatter, and they go all over. It's just crazy. Card games. I played baseball, little league, and I played D3 ball in college. So and I knew I wasn't going to the majors, but I wish I could remember who exactly it was. But it says, you know what? Just in case you don't go to the majors, just in case you don't get drafted. I'm not thinking about maybe you could write about it or broadcast about it, and that sort of solidified everything when I was in high school.
Did it because there were so few black play-by-play voices? Like, did it seem less attainable because of that? Is that something you thought about when you were younger?
And that's a good question, but I never thought of it that way. I jumped in and started out as an intern at the Philadelphia Inquirer in 1973, part of a program that had kids from all over the country. I was invited back solo in the sports department in 74, graduated in 75. They brought me back again. Actually, I was at the paper, and I was going to do the action line where people write in, hey, I had this soda in New York, but I can't find it in Philadelphia. Can you tell me where I can get it? That kind of stuff. And that was going to lead up to being the lead college writer / columnist at the Inquirer. But then in about a 2-week period, I got an offer from the New York Daily News, the Chicago Daily News, and the Inquirer offer, and I took the Daily News in New York. And Dick Young, and the legendary Dick Young, was the guy who brought me in, and then that started my whole New York existence. And the path, things started happening, and right place, right time, and so many things.
Do you feel like a bit of a pioneer or trailblazer? I
don't put on a coonskin cap or anything like that and carry a long rifle. But when I've heard from so many young broadcasters, black and white, and especially for the black guys, are like, dude, it's unbelievable. I mean, I want to be like you. You're doing exactly, can we get together? And I've mentored guys over the years, both black and white. I mean, and matter of fact, this coming Friday is the 3rd annual HBCU Swingman Classic, started by Ken Griffey Jr. It's an all-star game for baseball players from historically black colleges and universities. And Junior says, hey, as long as you want to do this game, you're doing it, all right? End of story. Junior and I are good friends. And the last couple of years, especially last year, about 7 or 8 guys were down there. A guy named Adam Guardino does the black college play-by-play fund, where we give scholarship money to young aspiring black broadcasters. And I like playing a part and paying this thing forward.
How does baseball get to a point where there is more balance and diversity with broadcasters?
Well, continued exposure of the game. Back in, I think it was from mid 70s, mid 80s, was 20% plus number of African Americans in Major League Baseball. Now that number's down around 5-6%. And from all the conversations I've had over the last few years, travel ball is probably the biggest thing. And if you want to play an elite travel ball, it's going to cost you like minimum 15 large a summer. And not a lot of kids can do that unless they get sponsorship from somewhere. That has changed. The generational change is unbelievable because, growing up in Philly, you had, Philadelphia Recreation Department. You had leagues all over the place. I graduated to a Babe Ruth league, so I had, if you had to pay $100 for a summer, that was a lot. And so the circumstances have changed. The good news is that I'm told that each year in the Major League Draft, the numbers continue to grow with African American players being drafted in the first, second round. And matter of fact, the Angels have the second baseman who was an All-American in Tennessee, and there's a few other guys who have played at high level, major conference teams. They're making their way into the big leagues. Hunter Green's one of my favorite guys. Cincinnati Reds right-hander. He totally gets it. He gives back every January. Has kids out to his place in Arizona, and talks to them about how important education is, how important the game is. And they run camps and everything. So he's an absolute beauty, and there's a whole bunch of other guys hopefully on the come.